Welcome, messengers. We're here in the virtual video studio, and today we're doing a spotlight interview with Vicki Delaney. I have her here with me now. So Vicki, would you tell us a little bit about yourself and what your message is?
Yes, well, I'm a mechanical engineer, which is a little strange for a woman, and I am 69 years old. So it's taken me this long to figure out what my message is. I know what my message is now, and it comes from reading a title that says, "Can the institution of marriage survive?" And the message that I have is absolutely, if you choose to have it survive. So I'm here to tell you the 4 steps it's going to take to recreate that marriage.
These 4 steps, is this the foundation of your message? And when you teach these 4 steps, is it through a program or one-on-one training? What does the process look like?
Well, currently I am running workshops that are 6 weeks in duration. And that's an on-site workshop, 1 hour every day, or 2 hours every day. But in this message, I'm actually going to teach you what you need to do to create the marriage of joy and happiness. So I can do that. I also coach couples or even groups on how to create an atmosphere of joy by understanding why we have so much animosity within groups, because it's a very simple answer, and the answer is you. You are the one that decides whether you're going to be happy or not, and I have a system for turning that around.
That is awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about what those 4 steps are?
Sure. Well, the very first step to, I'm going to say, reversing misery is you need to understand what your perception of what the situation should be. So with respect to, I'll talk about marriage because I feel this is very important. It sets the stage for future generations and their happiness. So with marriage, we all come into the picture with a preconceived notion of what marriage should look like. And that marriage preconception comes from what we observed as children with our parents. So if you visualize, you have 2 people with this in their brain, which is a whole bunch of stuff that is, you don't even know it's there. So if you were fortunate enough to have a family that was very loving and demonstrative and emotional, happy, then your version of marriage is happiness and joy and demonstrative. But if you marry someone that comes from a marriage of disrespect, emotion, anger, fighting, then your perception of marriage is going to be exactly that. So my method is that you sit here and you write down, both of you, in a journal or even by yourself, what your perception of marriage is. So in order to bring harmony into a marriage, it's important to understand what each of you thinks marriage should be. Let's face it, when we meet each other and we fall in love, everything's beautiful, you have no idea of what you are really thinking about marriage. You're driven by lust, sex, and whatever it is that drives us to get married. So by writing down your perception, you're now able to look at it and say to yourself, is this really the way I want it to be? And your partner says the same thing. I don't know. This is the way I thought it should be. So the question then becomes is, can we change it? But at least by writing it down, you are now aware of the hidden rules that you're operating to. So if you have rules in your family where the father is always the boss, or where the mother is always the boss, you are going to operate within that marriage exactly like that and not even know it. So step one, write down your perception. Okay, step two is know yourself. Most of us never know ourselves. We have no idea who we are because we have all that stuff in our brains that somebody else has told us who we are. You're brilliant, you're stupid, you're not smart, you're sad, you're. There's all these judgments coming in your life. And that's all that's in your head. But the reality is you come to this planet with core values. And your core values are who you are. So you have different kinds of people. You have the half full person and the half empty. It's very possible that that's just who they are. You have a person that wants to control everything. And then you have the person that wants complete freedom. Is that learned? It could be, but I suspect it's probably who they are. So the second step is to figure out, who are you? What is it that really makes your heart sit? What is it that you do that could possibly be driving your spouse nuts, but you can't help not do it? And for me, an example is I tend to be absent-minded. My mind's up in the clouds somewhere, and I leave things around. I don't do it on purpose, but my poor husband thinks I do, because he has a rule that says we have to put everything away. And every time I leave something around, he gets a little perturbed. So that's his reaction to my natural who I am. So you both sit down and you figure out what your core values are. Your core values will never change. The easiest way to figure out what they are is close your eyes and visualize those things that you did when you were a kid and nobody could stop you. Were you digging holes in places you shouldn't have been because you were curious? Were you singing and dancing out in public because you love to sing and dance? Those things that you can't put away. So first, that second step, which is extremely important, is to identify your core values. Once you identify the core values and you know what your perception of marriage is, now you're ready to start the journey to separate the reality that you want to create from all of this stuff that's been stuck in your brain that is making you act the way you are right now because you believe that it's all correct. But the truth is, if you have kids and you've been around children, if somebody swears with emotion, what's the first word out of that kid's mouth? That word. Shit. Whatever. So it's the emotion in life that as children we observe, that we absorb, and we become that. Not because we've chosen to become that. It's just that it's there. We observed it. It's the only thing that we know. It's the model. The third step is, we know the perception, we know the core value. Now what we want to do is write down all those things that bug you. What is driving you nuts about your marriage? The key to that is it's driving you nuts. That partner, spouse is not doing it on purpose to drive you nuts. You're driving yourself nuts by reacting to situations. So we'll sit down, write down all those things that are really driving you nuts. You're not blaming this person. You're not blaming that person. You are going to own the fact that you are bugged by something that you believe is not right. You don't know you don't believe it's not right, but you believe it's not right. So look at that list. All right, let's say, yeah, he drives me nuts because he's late all the time. Well, you must have a rule about lateness. What is it? Were you told that when you were a child, never be late, that it's horrible if you're late? Was there emotion attached to being late? Or did you miss a big event because you were late and you resolved you would never be late again. That could very well be why you're aggravated by this person being late. Let's look at this person, this other person. They're late because it was acceptable in their family to be late. Everybody was late. It was a culture of, we'll get there someday. So the two core values are not, the two beliefs are not matching. But you don't know that because you just accept that your belief, being late is bad, is the only belief. And so you build up all these frustrations and they get bigger and bigger. And then after 10 years or however long it takes you to get there, me, I was a little more patient. I lasted 27 years, but all of a sudden you can't take it anymore. You've had it. All your rules are being flaunted, and you're feeling like you're being picked on and you're not being loved and you're not worthy. So all of these things are you, not the other person. They're you. So now you get the opportunity to look at that list and understand why these things are driving you nuts. Now, it's very possible that one of those things that's driving you nuts has to do with a core value. So let's say that you are the person who wants to be free and your spouse can't not be controlling because that's who they are. At that point, you now sit down together and decide, one, is this marriage worth saving? Can we work this out? Can you be a little more forgiving of the controlling, and can you be more aware of the controlling? Yes, you want to control. Can you kind of tone down the controlling? You make an agreement because now you both understand what's going on. You understand that it's you, it's part of you, it's who you are. You can't change that. You can't go from being a free person to one who wants to be subjugated. Now, the controlling person can't go from being controlling to just letting it all go. It's not going to happen. So at this point, when you're doing the bug me list, you are now starting to peel it all away and start the dialogue to creating the marriage of joy. Because if you really look at these things and you see the humor behind it, you can laugh. If you stop being so serious about it, because you realize, oh yeah, that was grandma's rule, or oh, that was dad's rule, or that was mom's rule. That's a stupid rule. I want to be happy. And you both agree you want to be happy. Now you start the process. So those 4 steps get you to that point to create the life that you will enjoy. This has an impact on your children, your children's children, because you are going to model the marriage of happiness, respect, honor, love, by creating that together. If you don't, your children will pick mom's version or dad's version or your version together, and that's what their marriage will be like. And at that point, the institution of marriage can't survive because we're repeating the same thing over and over again. So the answer to the question, can the institution of marriage be saved? Absolutely. And it's a choice. And it's a choice that you can make together. That's it.
That was really, really, really powerful stuff there, Vicki. And I definitely appreciate the value of looking at your core values and the power that comes from that. I've done that work myself, primarily around business, though. I've never seen it applied to marriage. I've never seen a model create around marriage, and even the bug me list. So just to do a quick recap, it sounds like the 4 steps were you write down your perception of marriage, what your core values are, and your partner's doing the same, and a bug me list or what annoyances come up in the marriage, and then you sit down and you come up with agreements based on those understandings of what's happening. Is that a correct recap?
Absolutely.
Perfect.
That's exactly what it is.
So what I'm wondering is, it sounds like this is a process that definitely happens when you take a married couple that's having trouble through this process. Do you work with anybody that they're not married yet? Maybe they don't even have somebody in their life, but they'd like to be prepared or set up for that. Okay.
Absolutely. In fact, some of my clients have been divorced and are considering second marriage, and some are in a second marriage, and that is starting to crumble. I don't know whether you're familiar with the statistics, but 50% of the first marriages end, 60 to 65% of second marriages end, and then 73% of third marriages end. And so if you are a person that has been married and divorced, you need to figure out who you are first before you go into another relationship, because you are going to repeat the same thing over again. So it applies to anything, really, when you get down to it. Just know your...
Brilliant, thank you. And now you said you wrote a book as well. Can you tell us a little bit about what's in that book? And I know you also have a website as well, so could you share with us what we would find on that website?
Okay, well, the book that I wrote is actually written about my divorce and what I learned. And it actually has all these strategies in it. It's called Divorce or No Divorce, That Is the Question. I don't know whether it was divine or, intervention or what, but one day I sat down and this voice said to me, write this book on divorce. Now, I'm an engineer. I might write a book on business or something else, but divorce, I would never have thought, but I did. I mean, I actually sat down and wrote this book. I was driven to do it. I wrote it and I kept writing and adding to it, and I'm still adding. There'll be more versions of it. But I just know that this is the message that I'm supposed to be bringing to the world, is that you can create a life of joy. And you can apply this methodology to anything. But marriage, right, is one of the most important institutions that we have in our culture and society. And if everyone is miserable, then society is miserable. So that's my goal now, is to lighten everybody up, have them understand that they can create a life of happiness and joy within their marriages, or even if they decide not to be married, at least they know who they are and they can find the relationship that would work for them.
Really, really, really love this practice here. It's just so powerful what you're doing. So thank you for sharing that. We've just got a minute or so left here. Would you leave the audience with something, maybe a tip or something that they can apply in their life right now in this moment, either in their marriage or in getting ready to be married and settle down in life? Just maybe one thing, and then how can people contact you?
Okay, well, I would say if you're considering getting married, or even if you are married at this point, the first thing that you need to be aware of is what your beliefs are. So talk about marriage. Tell each other what your parents' marriage looks like, because you are going to be able to understand that interaction. Pay attention, because you should understand that interaction. And then the most important thing of all that I didn't mention before is you have to love yourself. And loving yourself means honoring yourself, being worthy of living in love, and understand that if you don't love yourself first, you can't love anybody else. So you can reach me at my website, which is www.savemarriagelovelife.com. Leave me a message. If you have any questions I would love you to post them so I can answer them so that everyone can benefit from your questions.
Alrighty. Thank you so much, Vicki, for joining us and sharing your very, very powerful message. And we're glad we had you here on the Spotlight interview.
Well, thank you very much, Matt. I really enjoyed it.
And thank you, messengers, for joining us. We look forward to seeing you on the next Spotlight interview.